Hi again everyone, welcome to our next video on the royal priesthood. And I'm really excited about this one today. I'm calling it the risk of priesthood, and I'm calling it that because I believe that as priests standing before God, we risk adventure. We put ourselves in the place where heaven meets earth, don't we? We stand between God and humanity, and it's like we're at the opening of the wardrobe into Narnia, and who knows what adventures could await us as we go through the door, or who knows what might come out of the door into our prayer space. So today I want to look at one story that's really captivated me. It's found in Luke chapter 1, and I guess it's one of the last stories of the Old Covenant. It happens before Jesus is born. And it's a story of an elderly priest called Zechariah and his wife Elizabeth. And Zechariah is standing before God, and one day all heaven breaks loose. So you'll find that in Luke chapter 1, as I say, verses 5 to 25. And it says that Zechariah was an elderly priest, and his wife Elizabeth was also a descendant of Aaron, and they were childless and very old. And I'm going to read from verse 8. Once, when Zechariah's division was on duty, and he was serving as priest before God, he was chosen by lot, according to the custom of the priesthood, to go into the temple of the Lord and burn incense. And when the time came for the burning of incense, all the assembled worshippers were praying outside. Then an angel of the Lord appeared to him, standing at the right hand of the altar of incense. When Zechariah saw him, he was startled and was gripped with fear. But the angel said to him, "Do not be afraid, Zechariah. Your prayer has been heard. Your wife Elizabeth will bear you a son, and you are to call him John. He will be a joy and a delight to you, and many will rejoice because of his birth, for he will be great in the sight of the Lord. He is never to take wine or other fermented drink, and he will be filled with the Holy Spirit even before he is born. He will bring back many of the people of Israel to the Lord their God, and he will go on before the Lord in the spirit and power of Elijah, to turn the hearts of the parents to their children and the disobedient to the wisdom of the righteous, to make ready a people prepared for the Lord." So here's this perfect meeting of God and one of his priests. But it's more than that, it's the perfect merging of two stories. Zechariah, the priest, and his wife have been praying for a child. They've been praying for decades. They're now very old. And they wonder if God has even heard them. But the angel, when he turns up, says, "Your prayer has been heard." Now, if that was the only story here, that would be amazing, wouldn't it? That these elderly people, at last, after all these years of faithful prayer, have had their prayer answered. But actually, this is just the smaller of the two stories. This is the stream. There's a river that this stream merges with, and the other bigger story is God's own story for planet Earth. God so loves the world that he wants to send his son to bring life and salvation and eternity into planet Earth. So he's about to come and save his people. He's been waiting even longer than Zechariah and Elizabeth. He's been patient. But the time is coming, and he's looking for someone who's standing in the gap, someone who's standing at the door, so that this person can be God's human agency into planet Earth, because God always does things that way. Then one day, God's prayer is answered. Old Zechariah, doing the same thing he's always done, clocking in for work, standing in the gap, burning the incense, offering the prayers on behalf of all the people who are standing outside, simply doing his priestly duties. And it feels like that sometimes, doesn't it? We're just doing the duty. We're praying, and we're praying and we're praying, we're standing. Sometimes we feel God's presence, sometimes we don't, but we just keep doing it because we know we're called to be royal priests. We keep praying for our communities. We keep praying for our friends and our neighbours and our relatives. We keep standing there. We keep clocking in. We keep placing ourselves before God week in, week out. And sometimes we wonder if we've even been heard. But we keep turning up. And in all that, we sometimes forget that God longs to do something in planet Earth. His heart is full of passion and compassion. He wants to do something, and he is biding his time, but he's looking and waiting for the perfect marriage and merging of two stories. Every significant heavenly invasion into planet Earth has come about through God's priesthood. You can trace every story back to people standing before God. Think of the Moravians who prayed day in, day out, this little group. For 100 years they prayed. But from that little group, hundreds and hundreds of missionaries were sent out to all corners of the planet. Then there were two elderly sisters aged 82 and 84 who week after week after week after week prayed every Tuesday night from 10 p.m, sometimes till 3 or 4 in the morning, prayed for the Hebridean Islands where they lived. And God heard their prayer and God broke in. And his old Zechariah just simply turning up. And suddenly, that's the risk of priesthood. You faithfully keep turning up, keep standing before God, keep on praying. And who knows what God might be doing? And who knows what doors might open? Who knows what big story you and I could get swept up in just by being there? So are you ready to take the risk of being there? Have a great week.